parents and everyone. I'm Erica Desper, founder of the Center for Confident Parenting, and we are taking parent questions and getting you expert answers. And today we have a question that will be answered by Kerri Carpenter, who is many things, a mom, first of all, but also a parent mentor. She has an occupational therapy background, lots of experience with both neurodivergent kids and neurotypical. Hi, Kerri, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me. And this parent says, I have an antisocial toddler. Is there anything I can do to help with them being slow to warm aside from practice? And I personally related to this question. My son is 14 years old now, but I would still call him slow to warm. Actually, I'm sure it's tied to his temperament, maybe his brain wiring. He is neurodivergent, but even our neurotypical kids, socializing can be hard. You can certainly tell us why and what to do about it. But what was challenging for me as a parent was paying for the classes and spending all the money. And it was 45 minutes a week. And he would cling to me and hang back at the back of the room the entire time and be ready to join in when they sang goodbye.
Yeah, he was ready to be done.
Yes. And then the next week we would just start. I'm like, but you can't be ready at the end. Like, and then he wanted to stay. But I'm like, but it's over. Our turn is over. We have to go. The next class is coming in. But we wouldn't start any further ahead the following week. It was like his first time there every time. And I still went. I don't know if that was right or wrong, but I thought, well, he'll catch on at some point. We tried various, different, maybe art, maybe this, maybe that, music. And then even at the playground, I was telling you before we hit record, he wouldn't just go up to, kids tend to like, oh, I like what you're doing. Let me dive in. But I'd have to take him by the hands and say like, hi, this is, so-and-so. Can he play with you? And sort of hang out for a little bit. And then I could ease myself out. So why does that happen? Is what I did right? What can this parent do aside from practice? And I guess what is practice like? Is that what it looks like? What I just described? That's the long question.
Yeah, I think practice can look like a lot of different things. So the first thing I love that you talked about, just the temperament and personality, right? Because it seems like, by the first year, I mean, I can look at my two kids and say, I have to have two completely different set of parenting skills because every child's personality and desire to interact is different. And then the second piece is, of course, we're talking about toddlerhood, right? And so we know that we've got the separation anxiety that's peaking, 18 months, 3 years, developmentally somewhere in there. They're conflicted, they really want to be close to the parent, but they want to explore. So it's all of this kind of tension that's created. So I think just understanding that piece of that this is a very natural thing for a child to be hesitant, and some children, right? Some children might need more encouragement than others. So a lot of what you were describing too is like sometimes when you're going to those structured settings, like whether it's a preschool setting or maybe it's a group where other children might have a rapport with one another outside of that setting, children, even at a very young age, are very sensitive to that energy, and they can see the way children are playing, and they might be really enjoying watching it, but just don't know how to get in there. And so I think a good strategy, and I always fall back on parent modeling. I think it's great to coach our kids. It's great to say, hey, why don't we go see, what so-and-so is doing? Or why don't you go play with those kids? Or let's go look over there. But sometimes just doing it yourself can even be more powerful, and not even like you just go in naturally and think like the child. So like you're talking about the playground.
Yeah.
And so rather than even sort of like directing your child or even saying to them, let's go over here and do this. You just kind of
just do it.
Just do it and go over, and you see another kid and you go, oh, that slide looks fun. Is that slide fun? I'm going to try it. Like, and you interact with the child, the other child, while your child is kind of witnessing that.
Right.
And then
is that a little less pressure?
It is much less pressure. And it's less pressure, and it changes the dynamic between you and your child as well. Because especially if you, like you said, you're practicing, if this has become a routine, your child's already going to maybe sense your energy when you're going into that situation with a bunch of other kids. They know, like, this is something my mom wants me to do.
Right.
They may not be able to articulate that, but that kind of tension in toddlerhood as well, right? They don't always want to do what we want them to do, kind of adds a layer to it. And so showing them that, you're comfortable interacting with these other children, these other people, and that you're also comfortable with them not being comfortable. Like
Mhm.
that's a very important message as well. So if they're burrowing their face into you while you're playing with the children, that's okay. Let
Mhm.
them do that, but also continue playing with the children. And then just being patient and letting them kind of have their head turned and maybe watching this for the very shy child, right? Like kind of watching what you're doing, and maybe the other child tries to interact with them and they pull away and they turn into you and say, "Oh, I guess they're not ready yet to play yet." Well, this is so like you can say, your child's name, and
Mhm.
Johnny's not quite ready to play yet. So whenever he's ready, he'll play, but I'll play with you. Show me your truck. Or like show me what,
And you mentioned the word shy, which makes me want to think, is there anything we shouldn't be doing? Like a lot of times our inclination is to say, oh, he's really shy. Does that
Mm,
become like a self-fulfilling prophecy? And so is it better to say he's not ready yet?
I think that's a good point. Like saying labeling it as shy can be a little bit that can be a little bit tricky. I will sometimes use the feeling shy as like just feeling shy is almost like
Right.
or feeling quiet or not quite ready to play. Let me, whenever you're ready to play, we're here playing, and just kind of, put on them. You're wanting to snuggle, okay. So yeah, I think that's a good point, is calling out like the shy word. You don't want
Yeah.
them to use that also.
Well, and I think it puts a little negative spin on it, but isn't it true that sometimes the slow to warm kids are also sort of the kids who like to get a lay of the land, understand everything that's happening, who the players are, how to do things right and well. They're maybe perfectionists or what they just want to like, it's not like they're doing nothing, right? I think a lot of parents think like they're just hiding or they're
Mhm.
anxious, but they
Yes.
might be like, that might be the kid who dives in and does the thing like, wow, like because they really took the time, whereas maybe somebody else just dives in and figures it out as they go.
Yeah, and I think that's again back to kind of the personality and the way that people play, right? The way that children play. There's some children who are a little more intellectual in their play, and they do really well in a one-on-one setting that's like task oriented and with a child that has similar interests, and that is just kind of their level of interaction. That's what they enjoy. And there's other kids who want lots of friends and a big group game, and they thrive in that setting. And so and we as adults are the same way, right? We have introverts and extroverts. And there's a lot of evidence out there that gifted children, children who are gifted have that's their area of strength. Maybe the social isn't quite as important and relevant to them.
Yeah.
So they would maybe rather connect over a shared interest that is maybe a little bit less kind of outlandishly playful as like a playground setting, something like that. And so um, trying to, encourage their interests and finding a friend or someone who shares that interest is also a good
And I
approach.
think it's helpful for parents to know that play at first isn't social, right? So there's something called parallel play, which is what kids do first. Like I'll play near you,
Yes.
do my own thing. That's how social I get. When does that, like, when should the expectation be that it'll be more like, I see you, you see me, let's do this together rather than parallel?
Yeah, so parallel play, I don't want people to think like parallel play stops and goes right into collaborative play or
True.
cooperative play, because
Right.
it kind of merges and it ebbs and flows, right? So
Okay.
parallel play is like two children sitting next to each other, maybe doing the same task, maybe doing a different task, and they're just in it, but they're aware of each other's presence, but they're completely engaged in their own separate task. And then when the cooperative play starts to happen is when they start to look at what the other person's doing. And maybe they say, oh, can I put my block on your tower? Or, oh, maybe my baby wants to have a tea party with your baby. Whatever it is, they start to combine their play schemes together. And so that becomes a more social cooperative thing. And then it might switch again and they might start
Mhm.
building separately, and they might start like, and it should kind of naturally ebb and flow that way. And that's another great behavior to model when you have a child who's slow to play with other children, as
Right.
you're there in your lap or you're holding them, however they're comfortable, and you're parallel playing with another child or other children. And then you're slowly saying like, oh, I'm going to put this block over here. And if the other child's starting to cooperatively play,
Right.
great. Hey, what do you think? We should put this one here. And then you're really just doing the playing. And you're
Right.
just telling your child, whenever you're ready to jump on in, we're
Right.
just going to keep doing this
Yeah.
thing. No pressure. You're
Yeah.
here.
Well, and I was just wondering, because this parent said they have an antisocial toddler, which makes me think maybe they don't fit the preschool label yet. Like they may be just so young that they are fully in the parallel play, and the parent is thinking like, oh, this is a problem. How do I teach them to interact? Like the practice will still be helpful, but they may be right where they are supposed to be, right?
Right. And I think though it's interesting, right? Because I'm trying to think what the word antisocial looks like. What that looks like to me might be different to someone
Right.
else.
We can't ask any follow-up questions of this parent.
Right? We don't have any follow-up questions. So I would probably want to, have a consultation. Like in a consultation setting, you would get more information about exactly what it looks like and what they've tried and what's worked. And so you can give maybe more specific strategies for that child, a little bit more of an individualized approach.
Right.
In general, though, I mean, I can say, I notice, and just probably because of my background, but when I go to like toddler birthday parties and things like that, it's always fascinating to me to see how different children will gravitate towards different things in the party. And there's some kids that just don't want to participate in the structured,
Right.
activities and games, or they're really withdrawn when everybody's singing and yelling. It's too much stimulation for
Right.
them. Um, so there's
Exactly.
two things to kind of tease out before
Yeah.
we maybe say that's antisocial. It's,
Right.
you know what I
And they
mean?
were probably using that casually, but it is a good point, a good point
Yeah,
to make.
yeah. Just to
So
think
it's,
about like, what does that look like really? Yeah.
yes, exactly. So it sounds like modeling, low pressure modeling is probably the best maneuver, whether whatever's causing this, and just creating lots of opportunities for that to happen. So is it also correct to say like, don't shy away from taking your child into social settings, just don't have your expectations be too much, right away.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And just, in terms of the word practice, right? Like I think practice, we think of like directly, like goal directed, trying to do something over and
Right.
over. And I feel like the practice word, I might change just more exposure.
Exposure.
Exposure and modeling. So just getting them used to social situations, maybe start out small with a play date with one peer rather than a whole
Right.
group. And
Yep.
then seeing how that goes. Because it just might be overstimulating,
Yep.
all the chaos and the fun being had, and they're just not there quite yet.
Yeah.
So yeah,
All
taking
right. And if a parent feels like this is taking up too much of their mental energy, maybe they're not comfortable modeling because they're socially whatever, and they're like, I don't want my kid to end up like me. I want someone to help. Like, obviously, this is something you do. So, do you want to tell us how you work with families and where everybody can find you?
Yeah, sure. So, Joyful Connections is the name of my website, and that's joyfulconnectionsfamily.com. And the work that I do is I do Zoom virtual consultation, but I also work in the community. So just like we're talking about in a preschool setting, um, in a playground, in a grocery store, I meet families wherever they are, and they're having those concerns, whether it's social, sensory, behavior, and coaching the parents for their individual child on some strategies so that they can enjoy those opportunities, socially, and get into their community and participate without being concerned about their child's behaviors.
Awesome. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I hope this is helpful to the parent who asked, and we will put this out there for parents who also have it on their radar. And Kerri, I'm sure we'll have you back soon to answer more questions. If you have one that you'd like to submit, you can go to centerforconfidentparenting.org and click the Ask an Expert button. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.